Okay, YouTubies, I want to talk about this very interesting movie that I watched when I was a child. It's called Planet Earth. It was mainly written by Gene Roddenberry, and it was made into a movie. Now, before I get into discussing this very interesting movie, I just want to make a comment that this weekend I got another one of these comments that kind of irritated me on my YouTube channel. This one was from a Muslim who was trying to tell me all about his invisible sky god and how Islam is true, and go on and on about his invisible sky god to me. And I've had enough of it. So I kind of answered him and banned him. At this point, if you come on and try and tell me about your invisible sky god and your Semite religion of truth, I'm probably going to ban you because I'm way past that. And I'm not interested in your radical, crazy, invisible sky god or underground people that aren't there. And how, I have to follow your religion. I'm just not interested in it. So enough of that. Let's get on to this movie. Planet Earth was a movie about a dystopian future where the Earth went through a nuclear war, and the only thing that was left were colonies and an underground group of scientists who had created all of these tunnels to go from colony to colony. And in the movie, one of the scientists had disappeared, and another group of scientists had to go and find him. And they find out that he ended up at this colony that was run by women, and it was structured as an Amazon colony. The men were controlled through a drug, and this drug was something that was created in the war to make people subservient and docile. And they were using it on the men, and they structured their society as an Amazon society. Now, I've already told you that there was an Amazon culture, and they didn't use a drug to control the men. They just came to an agreement that that was how their culture was going to work, their colony or what have you. Now, they were out in Libya, in parts of northern Africa, and they were in Greece as well. But that group of Amazons was induced into a war with the Gorgons, which was another female-dominant society, and they annihilated each other, and that was done by the Atlanteans, because the Amazons were conquering and changing the other colonies into Amazon colonies, and these Atlanteans didn't like that. And so they basically wiped out both of those female-dominated tribes or colonies, and whatever Amazon women were left, they took in as wives or women to watch the children. And they were prized to be brought in that way for what was left. And some of the Amazons escaped up into what would be the Scythian kingdom and tried to restart an Amazon culture there, but it didn't happen. So in this movie, these underground scientists have to go to this colony, infiltrate it, and get out the doctor. But what happens is another colony of these mutated men who are like Nazis, you might as well just call it what it is, because that's all Hollywood seems to focus on, wants to come in and attack this colony and get the drug that makes people subservient. And this colony, called the Confederacy of Ruth, has to take the men off the drug, and everybody has to fight off these Craigs, which they do. And so their society changes, and it just becomes a little bit more equal, and they continue on. But what was interesting to me in this movie was all of the themes match, in my opinion, what was written in that Loeb Library in the British Library. You have an underground group of scientists. They are living underground. Their goal is to rebuild civilization after this catastrophe. They use tunnels to travel from colony to colony. They basically have the knowledge and science from before, whatever's left, and they have to rebuild the earth. And then on the earth, you have various colonies. You have one that's in Amazon, one that's more male dominated, and various other colonies. Now, this is exactly what I've been talking about that the Cronides had to do. One side had to go out across the world and teach about agriculture, and they created agricultural cults. Some of the colonies were female run. Ireland comes from the goddess. Ancient Babylon or Sumer came from the goddess. Other colonies were masculine dominated, came from a god. Or generally came from both of them. Let's be honest. It was both male and female that contributed. It wasn't until the Semites came out with their religions and really came into Europe about 1700 years ago and just destroyed everybody's knowledge that these male-dominated religions and cultures came into play. There has always been a warrior culture. There's always been female warriors and male warriors. There's always been balance or an attempt at balance between the genders. It just wasn't until 1700 years ago that problems started. And it started with these Semite cults. Now, I'm looking around today and what happened in Charlottesville yesterday. And it's just complete Hegelian dialect. You have these alt-rights who have a black and red color scheme doing the Nazi stuff. They have the black sun all over their symbolism, chaos symbols all over the place. Then you have the other side, which is Antifa, and they're all in black, like a Saturn cult. They're also using the color scheme of black and red, and the communist fist. So you have Nazis versus communists, which is the same thing that happened in World War II. So, and I've looked into a lot of these people. There's a lot of Jews that are running both sides, and they don't get called out. There's some people getting called out, but not all of them. But it is basically the same nonsense that has been played on us for thousands of years. It's like getting the Amazons to fight the Gorgons, two groups of women warriors, until they fought each other so much that they wiped each culture out. Getting the Germans to fight the Russians, Nazism versus communism, to the point where Germany was cut in half. That whole country was divided and had a wall between it for decades. Now look what we have going on. We have all of this immigration. We don't need it. Africa is so big, it could fit Europe, America, India, and China in it. Why isn't something being set up there for people that are allegedly refugees? Okay, nobody's asking these questions because it's all orchestrated to destroy everybody. And I can't help but just feel like not only is this movie talking about the past, but it's prophetic. It's talking about the future. And we're just down the same road again. Now, those statues should have been removed. And what I want you to think about is this. Those statues represent the tail end of a slave enterprise that has been going on for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. They need to be left up. We need to put more statues up for all sides, every side that was involved. We need to talk about who ran these slave trades, who got away with it, who profited. We need to talk about the black slaves, the Irish slaves. We need to talk about Australia, which is pretty much a prison colony of slaves. And we need to start looking at this, not hiding it. And I've been looking at this Jodin Savannah, which was a Jewish colony in Suriname, South America, in the 1400s, and they were bringing slaves in. And it collapsed eventually from a slave revolt. Just as many of the colonies in the Caribbean collapsed as well, and had many slave revolts. So to me, they're hiding history. They're removing these statues. They're getting ready to rewrite our history. They already are. I've already shown you that, what they did on PBS, talking about indentured servants. And they're trying to erase who was responsible for this, just as they have erased the history of these Cro-Nines. And they have set it up so that you have two sides. Using the same color codes, using the same symbols, same nonsense from World War II. Now they complicate it with different races. They've pitted everybody against each other. Man versus woman, black versus white, brown versus black, brown versus white, Nazi Antifa, religion against religion, and it's all going to come down. And the question is, who is really behind it? Is it this group out in Israel that you can't, they not only have a wall, but they have a minefield still between them and everybody else? Did you know that? They have a minefield. And you can't immigrate over there unless you take a DNA test to prove your genetics. Is it them? Or do we have something under the ground that's still running the show? And that is the final thing. Are these gray androgens real? That is the final question to me. And are they just thinning out the group? Because remember, Israel got their butt kicked thousands of years ago. They came up. Everybody hated them. They kept going in after them. And the Romans finally came in and squashed them to nothing. It's taken them thousands of years to come back up. And I don't think they're going to survive either. I think they've created so much hatred. At some point, they're going to go down again. The question is, who is doing this stuff? Who is setting up all of these sides, doing this Hegelian dialect? And when I look at this movie, Planet Earth, it's the past, but it's also possibly the future. And I have to wonder, do the people in the know understand what happened and they look for the technology that was left over underground and they're just running with it so they could be the dominant? Or do we have something still left under the ground? Still left, ready, maybe they'll never come out. Maybe they just want to thin out the herd on the surface. I don't know. But it just kind of stuck in my mind when I was looking at everything going on yesterday, all of the color code, all of the symbolism, all of the comments getting made, the George Orwell 1984 nonsense of rewriting history, trying to hide who was involved in what, and just thinking about this whole Cro-Nine research I've done. And like I said, I get the invisible God in the sky religious people on my site telling me how everything is true for their religion and all this nonsense. So at this, this is an interesting movie. I'll leave some links. You should check it out if you can see some clips on YouTube. But at some point, I have to take care of these religions that are causing problems. It's not time for me to do it right now. I've got too many other things going on, and I need to take care of these red-haired mummy situation as well as some other things. But we need to not get sucked into this Hegelian dialect, taking sides, and this, you know, your race, your gender, your religion, blah blah blah. You need to just keep digging in. You need to keep at these people with the questions and the truth, and not letting them get away with erasing history. And that goes for everything, not just what is going down in Virginia yesterday. So those were my thoughts today. It just kind of all came together. Hopefully this is something that makes you think about what is going on as well, and not get sucked into something you don't want to you shouldn't be getting sucked into. Thank you.